In a small kingdom nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests of 18th century Europe, there lived an aging king named Edward. His realm was modest, his treasury not overflowing with gold, but his people loved him deeply for his wisdom and fairness. As the winter of his life approached, King Edward lay on his deathbed, his strength fading. He called for his only son, Prince Alexander, a handsome and ambitious young man in his early 20s. The king grasped his son's hand weakly and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "My dear son, listen carefully to my final words. Rule wisely, love your people, and above all, don't show off. True success and lasting power do not come from loud proclamations, grand displays, or endless boasting. They come from quiet actions, steady effort, and genuine care. The world may cheer the one who shouts his victories from the rooftops, but history remembers the one who serves in silence." Prince Alexander nodded respectfully, but in his heart he thought his father's advice was outdated. The old king had ruled in quieter times. This was an age of enlightenment, of great courts and rival kingdoms. Surely a strong king must display his strength, his wealth, his brilliance, so that others would fear and admire him. Soon after, King Edward passed away, and Alexander was crowned King Alexander I. The young king wasted no time. He wanted the world to know how great he was. He threw lavish banquets that lasted for days. Trumpets announced his every arrival. He commissioned giant portraits of himself on horseback, sword raised high, and hung them in every hall. When he won a small border skirmish against a neighboring duke, he declared a week of celebrations, parading through the capital with captured banners and shouting proclamations of his unmatched bravery. Ambassadors from other kingdoms came and praised him to his face. Poets wrote odes to his glory. The court was filled with flattery. But something strange began to happen. The farmers in the villages worked just as hard, but their taxes grew heavier to pay for the feasts and statues. The soldiers grew tired of endless parades instead of real training. Merchants whispered that trade routes were neglected because the king was too busy planning the next spectacle. And when a harsh winter came, followed by poor harvests, the people suffered, while the palace lights burned bright every night. King Alexander noticed none of this at first. He was too busy enjoying the applause. One spring morning, as he rode through the capital in yet another grand procession, he passed a small blacksmith's workshop on the edge of town. The door was open, and inside sat a young blacksmith, quietly hammering a plowshare. He did not look up. He did not cheer. He simply worked. The king, annoyed that someone dared ignore his splendor, stopped the entire procession. "Why do you not cheer for your king?" he demanded. The blacksmith paused, wiped sweat from his brow, and replied calmly, "Your Majesty, I cheer with my work. This plow will feed a family through the winter. That is how I honor my king and my land." The king laughed loudly. "A plow? You think hammering iron is greater than ruling a kingdom?" The blacksmith said nothing more. He returned to his work. That night, the words stayed with Alexander. For the first time, doubt crept in. Years passed. The neighboring kingdoms grew stronger. One by one, they began to challenge Alexander's borders, not with war, but with clever trade deals, better roads, stronger alliances. They did not boast, they simply built. Alexander responded the only way he knew: more parades, more speeches, more statues. But the people grew weary. Taxes rose again. Whispers turned to grumbling. Then came the great crisis. A powerful neighboring empire, seeing weakness, marched a large army toward the kingdom. They did not send warnings or demands for tribute. They simply moved, quietly, efficiently. Panic spread. Alexander called his generals. He promised glorious victory. He planned a massive counter-display. Thousands of soldiers in shining armor, banners flying, drums beating. But when the day of battle came, many soldiers did not show full heart. The people did not rally with passion. The grand display looked impressive, but it was hollow. The kingdom lost territory. The capital itself was threatened. In despair, King Alexander rode alone to the old blacksmith's workshop. The same young man, now in his 30s, was still there, working quietly. "I remember you," the king said, his voice heavy. "You once spoke of honoring the land with work." The blacksmith nodded. "Teach me," the king said. "My father warned me not to show off. I did not listen. Now my kingdom suffers." The blacksmith thought for a moment, then said, "It is not too late, sire. Begin again, not with noise, but with deeds. Fix the roads your people travel. Lower the taxes so farmers can store grain. Train your soldiers in skill, not in parades. Listen more than you speak. Help quietly. Serve without announcement." King Alexander returned to the palace. For the first time, he canceled a planned festival. He sent gold not to artists for statues, but to builders for bridges. He visited villages, not with trumpets, but alone or with only a few guards. He listened to complaints. He fixed what he could. He met with neighboring rulers, not to boast, but to make fair peace. Slowly, quietly, things changed. The people began to trust again. Farmers had surplus grain. Trade returned. Young men joined the army willingly, proud of a king who cared. When the empire threatened once more, the kingdom stood united, not because of speeches, but because of shared strength. The war was avoided through wise, quiet diplomacy. Years later, when King Alexander grew old, he called his own son to his side. He held his hand and said, "My son, remember this always. Don't show off. The loudest voice fades quickly. The quiet hand that builds, heals, and serves, that hand shapes the future." And the young prince listened, not just with his ears, but with his heart. The kingdom prospered long after, not because of grand displays, but because of steady, humble work. And so it was proven once again. True success does not shout, it simply endures. The end. Moral: greatness is not in showing off, but in showing up, quietly, consistently, and with purpose.